Hello and welcome to Talk from Superheroes. Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Ivimey.
And I'm Diana McCullum.
And you're listening to Talk from Superheroes, where every week we discuss a piece of heroic television or film. And this week on the podcast, we are going to be talking about the Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time.
The film.
The film.
I believe there's also a game of this title.
Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time, the game, the movie.
The game, the movie, the film, the experience, the moving picture.
That's right.
The live action
experience.
Experience.
What was it that did that? Was it like High School Musical?
Oh, yeah.
Movie,
High School,
the play or
High
something?
School Musical, the series, I believe.
Something like that. Which I respect the hell out of the anarchy of that. Of just going all in for them with that.
I think that was such a fun title, and I hope that show was fun. As a High School Musical fan, I hope the new generation had a great time with it. I once auditioned for High School Musical.
Oh, did you?
Didn't make it in, of course, but I auditioned.
If you were, I mean, I don't know if you want to say, you need to say, of course. That makes it seem like it was like there was no shot, but like it would have come up.
It would have been mentioned. Also, I cannot dance.
Ah, yeah, that'll hold you back.
Yeah, it's not a lot of acting-based theater, the High School Musical, the series, or the theater show.
Or all of it.
Any of it.
But we're talking about Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time this week on the podcast. We decided to do a video game piece in build-up to covering The Last of Us, which we're going to be covering next week on the podcast.
A few weeks after that is Mario Brothers, so a little bit of video gamey times upon us.
Yeah, the video game times are upon us. So
it's here.
It's here. We'll be talking about all of The Last of Us next week on the pod, so we wanted to dip in, do another video game one. Yeah, but we're doing video game movies, and we're doing Prince of Persia, the Sands of Time.
Do we need the second part of the title?
Absolutely not.
We can just say Prince of Persia.
We certainly can.
There's not any more of them.
Legally, the movie is titled the full title, but there is no reason for it.
We do like to follow the law on Talk from Superheroes. So I guess legally, that is the name of the movie.
Yep, and to name the movie that, to be like, well, that's the video game it's named after. No one cares. No one cares at all.
No, the presumption that this would have a sequel, because that's the only reason to put the second part on the name.
Sure. And even then, in the video game series, it was like there's multiple Prince of Persia games, and I think there was 3 Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time games. So it's like a trilogy within a series. But I'm like, if you did make more of these, was it going to be Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time 2? What are we doing? What are we doing?
That's no good.
That's no good. What are we doing?
Sandier of times?
Get out of here.
More sands, more times? 2 sands, 2 times.
2 sands, 2 timely. And as well, before we get into today's episode, I want to let you know about a cool thing I have coming up that I would very much like all of you to check out. I have a new comedy album, my second comedy album, my sophomore, as the word is.
That's not a word we use in Canada, but I think it is the word.
I mean, that's a word Americans use in education. I think like people in the entertainment biz around the world use it. But my sophomore comedy album is going to be available on March 10th. It's called Murder Bird. It will be available wherever you buy or stream your music. I would love it if y'all checked it out. I would very much love it if our wonderful listeners, if y'all would pre-order it, or you can also pre-save it to your playlists as well. And you can find all of the links for it at murderbird.andrewivimey.com. I love how Murderbird makes you giggle a little bit every time.
Yeah, like you're saying it like it's
like
not
a normal
funny
thing.
Every time.
It's
And I know you've said your own album title so many times. So
I've become
maybe
desensitized to the Murderbird.
But I only hear it like once or twice a day, and I'm still just like, Murderbird. And I also picture the album art, which is so funny.
Oh, yeah. The album art is in the style of an Animorphs book cover series.
And it's Andrew morphing into a bird. It's so good.
It's very good. You can see the album art when you look up the album, and as well, you can find links in the show notes or on my social media at Ivimey. But I'm very proud of this. It's my second comedy album. I'm very excited for everyone to check it out. And when you go to the link for the album, for pre-orders and pre-saving, some links will be available there. But once it's released on March 10th and once it's available on all platforms, you can find links to everywhere it's available at murderbird.andrewivimey.com, a perfectly normal word and URL that I'm giving you.
Normal thing to type into your computer.
Yeah, so when you go there in advance, it'll have a couple of different links where you can pre-save or pre-order it, and then on launch day, March 10th, it'll have links to everywhere that it's available. Murderbird.andrewivimey.com. Check it out if you can. I'd love it.
You won't regret it. It's so funny.
And today, we can just get right into it.
Let's get down.
Let's get down. Let's get backwards. Let's talk about Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. All right, we have seen Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, and it's wild because we have seen it, and just now Diana turned to me, and for the first time ever in the 300-plus episodes of making this podcast, Diana turned to me, and normally she has like a few notes written down, and I was like, do you know what you're going to say? And she's like, I don't know. I don't know if I've seen this movie. And we've seen the movie. We watched it together. But it left Diana with the question of, did I see this movie?
I just feel like I didn't experience this movie. Like, it was so disjointed that I was like, I watched the wrong edit of this movie.
Sure.
And there's some other version of this movie probably that is, like, coherent.
Yeah. I feel like your I don't know if I've seen this movie is like a step above what is movie. It's not quite down.
It's not quite what is movie.
Yeah, but it was the first time watching it for I believe for both of us, definitely for me.
For both of us. We maybe have to stop doing movies now that of us have seen. It's risky.
Then I think that is the obvious bridge into the question. Diana, did you like it?
I did not like it. And I really wanted to, and I had no illusions it was good, but I'm like, I do like Jake Gyllenhaal, but do I want to forgive him for starring in a movie called Prince of Persia? And I don't, and he didn't earn any forgiveness with anything that happened in this film. But yeah, this film's a mess. It's just like, the action actually might have been good on set, but it was not edited well. It was not shot well. I actually think the stunt people actually probably did a great job, though, who were working on this movie. There's just like no charm to it. There's no excitement. There's nothing driving anybody. There's too many characters. Nobody's Persian. There's just a lot. It's just all problems. It's like there's not enough magic, but there's also like some magic, and it's the only magic. There is just nothing but what is happening. Who are you? Why do I care? And these aren't good questions to have. They're not good questions to have. So more than anything, I think this was a bad movie because it's not boring. It's frustrating, and that's annoying to watch. So it's gonna be a no from me. I'm gonna be a thumbs down. Did not like the Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. Andrew, did you like it? And also let me know anything. I have no idea if you played these games. No idea.
I have played them. They had no impact on me. I haven't played all of them, but I played a couple of them. Enough that I know some of the things that they're referencing and a few, like the hook of the game, and also that it was idiotic that they tried to use that to make a film in any way. Okay. So I know enough about the game to say that, but it's not a favorite of mine or one that I know passionately. And in terms of did I like this movie, this is just the longest, worst movie.
It's not even that long.
I know, but it feels like it's 8 hours. It is 2 of the slowest hours that have ever been put to film. And frustrating is a great word. It's not even like funny bad a lot of the time. It's one where it's like, I am legitimately frustrated that everyone who worked in every capacity of this movie failed so completely. With the exception of Alfred Molina, every single person who worked on this movie failed the concept of filmmaking. Like the world of movies are worse for everyone having participated in this.
Oh, I am frustrated for almost the exact opposite reason. I think half the people working on this movie did a great job. And then everyone in charge of directing and editing this film,
that's the worst part.
Did a terrible job. Because I think the costumes look great. I think the sets look great. I think there's some like cool shots every now and then.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Like I think it had a budget, and I think the stunt coordinators actually on set did a really good job of like doing stunts and everything. And I think it is shot terribly, edited terribly, and directed terribly.
It sure is.
So that's what I find frustrating.
I hadn't considered the costumes. You do bring up a highlight a high point that I hadn't really considered is that everybody does look pretty good. Everyone has kind of like a unique costume for like a gobbledygook garbage story that goes nowhere, does nothing, and is just bash your head against the wall bad. I was able to visually tell apart every single character with a unique look that all of them had. It really popped. It worked. I hadn't really considered the costuming, but you are right. And then also, they gave a sip of Jake Gyllenhaal to a thirsty world at that time. So wardrobe and costuming, you know what? Thank you for bringing that up. That is a great point. It did look good.
It did look good. And considering how many characters are in this movie and how little screen time everyone other than Jake Gyllenhaal gets, it's really important we can tell these characters apart. Like which brother is which one is also just like his friend and not his brother at all.
Yeah.
Which one's Alfred Molina and his crew, like really well differentiated. And also, like, I think the costumes just look good. They put, like, Jake in really nice colors that really pop on him. Just, like, it looks rich, but he also, like, looks like the poorest of the group. I think the costuming department actually kind of nailed this movie.
Yeah. He looks like new money. Like, he looks like he is a commoner with money. Like, the nicest... But like the nicest clothes with the least taste, kind of like really good costuming. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. Thank you for bringing up that little positive side.
I have other positives, and they only build on my frustration.
Yeah, well, we need to break up our positives.
Yeah, let's have some negatives.
Yeah. Like we need to bounce around a little bit. So like negatives, just most of it's trash. I don't even know where to begin on the negatives of this.
Where do I want to begin on the negatives?
Like we can get the obvious out of the way and be like, none of this cast is Persian. None of this cast is from anywhere near the region of the world. A surprisingly diverse cast in many regards, which also kind of makes it wild that like none of them are from that region in any way.
Is it diverse? I feel like only the knife throwing guy is not a white person. I don't know what Ben Kingsley is. I can never find it. What his ethnicity is. Sorry, apologies.
Ben Kingsley, I think is from India, or at least his family is. Alfred Molina, I think is Italian. So it's like, oh, okay, there's some, but it's all like it's a lot of like, white passing kind of colonial British accents as well.
Yeah.
So it's not a lot going on there. So
this is what's crazy about the story to me of like Prince of Persia. I'm like, obviously, especially Jake, none of you seem to be fitting the title of this. But then this movie starts, and the whole plot is the fact that Jake Gyllenhaal specifically is adopted. So he actually could just be a white boy. Like, he's adopted to the Persian royal family. So I'm like,
From a narrative standpoint.
So I'm like, why did you write this in and then not have any of the other actors, like, who are playing his family members? Why are they white still?
Yeah.
You wrote in a perfectly great explanation of whitewashing that I don't approve of, but at least, like, narratively makes sense.
Yeah, that would have been one that would have been just like, as far as representation in film and in terms of positive morals and making your best effort for representation in film, still would have been bad, but the internal logic at least would have tracked to a certain extent.
Yeah, it would have been kind of like Iron Fisty. Like,
yes,
I'm from an Asian country, but I'm a white guy who landed here in a plane crash.
Sure.
So, like, it's just a little bit more palatable.
Yeah, but they made no effort to make anything palatable.
No, none of it is palatable.
During the taking of this film. Even starting with, like, random poetry about lives tied together, placed over a screen.
I didn't find too many lives were all that tied together, if I'm going to be totally honest.
In no way were they.
No, you just found a time travel knife, and you did some time travel.
Yeah, and that's it.
No one was linked.
That is entirely it.
There's no, like, other lives and destinies and fucking Assassin's Creed reincarnation bullshit, even though you're half an Assassin's Creed already.
It's basically Assassin's Creed. I mean, these two games are almost identical in many ways.
I was going to ask which game came first, if you even know off the top of your head.
I actually don't know off the top of my head, but I want to say Prince of Persia.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie Prince of Persia came before the Assassin's Creed movie.
Oh, that is for sure.
I knew that much.
But I believe the Prince of Persia games were first. But also, like, the whole concept of this movie, why it is even called the Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, is that Prince of Persia was a game series that, some people liked, but it was a reasonably bland adventure game. There was some parkour, there was some puzzles, some kind of like tomb raiding type stuff, some combat. but you're pretty like standard, your standard kind of like adventure story. And then it was, I forget however many games in the series it was, they introduced the Sands of Time, which was a dagger that when you like killed people, the sand filled up. And then you could rewind time. So if you did a battle wrong or if you died, you could rewind and try again from a few moves back, which from a video game dynamic was really fresh at the time and really fun to play as. To be like, it allowed you to be like, I'm going to try to do something wild here. And when it didn't work out, you could rewind, you could do it a bit safer or try a different way. It was a very fun and fresh thing in video games and a very fun thing to control. And a lot of people were like, that's awesome.
It sounds really cool, especially for the first time that's introduced ever.
Yeah, and it's a fun way to interact with something. But when there's no interactivity, why did you choose this? Like, it's just a bland adventure story that now has one weird magical element that you don't do anything with and makes no fucking sense in the context of everything else.
This is what's frustrating, because I think it's like a very fun MacGuffin. I actually think like a different movie with a time travel dagger seems really cool. Especially because you only get a minute, so it's not like infinite power. It's like you only get the 60 seconds since you've done something to fix it. I think that's really cool. But this movie, for a movie that doesn't seem like it has budget problems, is like you can only use the knife like 3 times in 2 hours. And I'm like, but why? You can only go back a minute. Like, it's not like you're like need to like control power this man. Like, he's going to be like overpowered if he can use the dagger more often than this.
Yeah, it doesn't make it exists in the exact no man's land of the number of times they should have used the dagger.
It should either be like twice, once to see it works, and then once at the end or something,
or
all the fucking time.
I'm gonna say it should be 0 or all the time.
Oh, 0.
Because 0, then it's like, well, we're waging this war over a thing that we think is magical. And then you can just be like, well, is it magical? And maybe like once at the end for the big, like, this is how we rewrite the whole movie or whatever. But if it's just like a theoretical thing, but to be like, oh no, I have an actual magic weapon and I've used it a little bit, an awkward amount of it, enough that it's not the hook of this movie, but it is the name of the movie.
Yeah, it's just basically that a gun that ran out of bullets after the first scene it was used in. And he was like, I gotta find more bullets.
Yeah.
And you're like, you've got this wicked cool gun and no bullets.
Yeah, the Prince of Persia 3 bullets is the name of the movie, where it's like we have 3 overpowered things for the fights that he's fighting, and we just use it an awkward amount.
And the other weird thing about the magic is that there's not enough magic. I think you said this already, but like the dagger and the big glass thing are the only magic. I guess those assassins said they could see the future, but I don't believe them.
And they kind of controlled snakes mentally.
I kind of just don't believe them.
Yeah.
Is it weird to not believe the magic assassins?
No, you're right.
Okay.
You're right.
Good. I wouldn't want to tell them to their faces because they are deadly assassins.
I would nod and leave.
But I think they've just trained snakes. I think they have just trained snakes and they have some visions every now and then. Because if they could see the future, none of them would have died at Jake Gyllenhaal's hand, and most of them did. So there's that. But yeah, the knife is the only magical thing in this whole movie, and it's not introduced for 45 minutes, the magic part of it. Like, we see it a lot, and it, like, changes hands, and we know that the princess wants it. But it doesn't do magic for 45 minutes into the film. And then suddenly you're like, this is a movie I've been watching about, like, politics and war and, like, 2 sparring nations, and then suddenly there's individual one magic item.
Yeah.
It's like if the ring in Lord of the Rings didn't show up for an hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
An hour into the film.
And it wasn't the A plot. Is the other thing. Like, because to say that, like, oh, the big MacGuffin, the big magical item doesn't show up until 45 minutes in. It's like, okay, well, I guess maybe that's a long first act that really takes its time. But obviously, once magic kicks in, that's the inciting incident that sets forth the plot of the movie. No. The inciting incident is Jake Gyllenhaal's character getting framed for the murder of his dad. That's the inciting instance. Mm-hmm. That's the inciting incident that makes him run away, and now he's on the lam, and he's with a princess that is running away with him because She was captured in a false flag operation, looking for weapons she didn't produce. All of this shit is the A plot, and then it's like 20 minutes after the A plot kicks in, it's like, by the way, there's also a dagger.
There's also a magic dagger.
There's also a magic dagger.
But like,
everybody be cool about it. There's
but
also
Jake
a magic
Gyllenhaal
dagger.
just needs to clear his name. Jake Gyllenhaal just needs to clear his name. He needs to find out who killed his dad. Is absolutely the A plot of this movie until like the last 20 minutes.
Yes, yeah, and then even in the last 20 minutes, it's just like a dagger is around, whatever. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, they never use it.
No. So a really just truly mess of a thing to be like, we're gonna base this whole thing around a video game for which this is the core premise, and use it an awkward amount. Now there is one other instance of possible magic, I think, in this movie, and it made me laugh so damn hard. And it is the murder of the dad using a poisoned cape. They poisoned the cape.
Oh, you haven't experienced poison cape before? The old
Poison cape.
Yeah, poison cape. You know, you put a little poison on a cape and then it burns you
Until you burn to death-ish, but it's only just like mildly inconveniently warm. So this scene, for those of you who have not seen it, it is this big plot to assassinate Jake Gyllenhaal's dad. Mm-hmm. And one of his brothers is like, here's a dope cape you should give to dad. He'll love this great cape.
And it's an okay cape.
It's
not
fine.
even that great.
And then Jake Gyllenhaal does it. His dad puts it on, and his dad's like, oh no, and just looks awkward in a cape for a bit and dies while everyone reacts differently to what is happening.
I have to throw some more things in here about the cape. First of all, he puts the cape on over several other layers of clothing.
Yes.
I feel like we need to point out.
Absolutely.
This is not just like naked skin cape.
Mm-hmm.
There is at least 2, I would say, layers of clothing between his body and the cape. He has the cape on for several minutes before he starts to burn. He has a full conversation with Jake Gyllenhaal about how he's going to marry the princess instead of his brother. So, like, several minutes of cape just being like, nothing's going on. Do, wearing my nice cape, having a nice day.
This was a gift from my son.
And then all of a sudden, there's just, like, steam, and he's like, it's hot. And he can't get it off, even though it's just clothes.
It's still just clothes. It's still just clothes.
And then other people try to get it off, and they can't, even though it's still just clothes.
And not only is it just clothes, it's a fucking cape. It is held on by a singular button in front of your throat.
Yeah, it's not like a suit of armor that was plated onto his body.
Yeah, that like a bunch of people who like work for him have to like strap him into. Like a lot of old clothing did require the assistance of others and many ropes and ties and elaborate systems. It is a single buttoned cape. And he's just like, ooh, and he does sound only inconvenienced.
He's not screaming in pain.
No. And this is what really kills me, and I think is just so indicative about the whole movie, is that there's so many problems with this scene. So many. From writing to execution to all of it. But the most frustrating thing is that so much of the problems with this movie come down to the director. Because I'm like, no one in this scene was given the same direction.
Yes,
no
absolutely.
One, like at no point did the director come in and be like, "This is so hot. It's like you were wearing a cape doused in gasoline and someone set it on fire. You're screaming. No one knows how to touch it or handle it." He's like, like it's like a poison cape. All right, action. And everyone came up with a different idea of what that means. And they're all acting completely different performances based on whatever that actor's individual idea of a poison cape is.
Yeah. And no one will go near him. Everyone seems confused in a way that isn't in character. Mm-hmm. Because literally every character in the scene is also like a warrior who just like sacked a city. But they're all like, ooh, the cape's a little hot. I can't touch it. And I'm like, use a knife. Also, just use your hands. It's your father who you love, and you're trying to like burn your hands. It shows later that Ben Kingsley's hands are burnt because he's the one who did the thing to the cape. So obviously, like, you can touch it a little.
Yes.
Ben Kingsley committed.
Yeah, Ben Kingsley was like, he was a little bit, I was inconvenienced by how hot that was. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because a couple people touched the cape, and they give like the way that you would react if you touched a bowl of soup and the bowl was too hot.
Ooh.
Like, not impossible. Like, I'm going to say worst case scenario. The worst reaction anyone gave to like the temperature of that cape was as if, you know, when you get like a French onion soup or a ceramic dish or like a hot dip at a restaurant and they're like, careful, that was in the oven, the bowl's hot. You could, life on the line, touch it, but you shouldn't, and it will burn a bit. And we've all touched it for like a second. That's the biggest reaction anyone is giving this cape. A couple people touch it, and they're like, oh, ooh, oh no, oh no. And no one knows what to do, and they all react differently. And then the dad falls, and he's being inconvenienced to death. He's like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And Jake Gyllenhaal runs over, and he's leaning over his dad, and he's leaning on his dad. His hands are on the cape. He's touching the cape, and he's like, can anyone help get this cape off? And I'm like, what the fuck was that blocking and framing? You're holding the cape. And I could see the reason he was doing it is because not only was the cape not difficult to get off, whenever the actor playing the dad fell or moved, the cape naturally wanted to just come open and fall off him. So Jake Gyllenhaal had to, like, as an actor, hold it closed and pretend like he couldn't get it off.
Yeah. I did notice that because when he first puts the cape on, it's tied with just a little string. He's like, I'm going to put it on and then I'm going to tie it around my neck with a little string. And then, like, after, like, 2 scenes when it does start to burn him, suddenly it's super tight at the neck. And like but it's not like a magical thing that the cape was like, I'm gonna squeeze you and I won't come off. It really was just we put a burning substance on this cape and it took a few minutes to burn through your clothes and get to you. It was not a magical cape.
Yeah.
Are you on the fence on if it was a magical cape? I don't think it was anyway.
I wasn't until towards the end of the movie that Ben Kingsley was like, I burned my hand, and he said the word poisoning the cape. Which is a sentence that's never existed prior.
Hey, new murders just dropped.
So up until Ben Kingsley saying, I poisoned the cape, I thought it was a magic cape of some sort.
Now, I never thought it was that's fair, because it's a weird movie with weird stuff happening. Is it weird that I never thought it was a magic cape due to an episode of Highlander, the series?
Immediately, this is weird.
This weird? Well,
but tell me more.
I won't even elaborate.
No, I need to know more.
Okay, there's an episode of Highlander, the series, where Duncan MacLeod, the main character, there's another immortal who hates him, so he sends a dress to his wife, and the wife like puts it on. It's like a long sleeve dress that has like sleeves and everything, and she's like, it's so nice, thank you. And he's like, this isn't for me. And then her skin just like slowly starts burning because he had put stuff inside the dress to burn her.
Oh, okay.
And she doesn't die. But she is like, but it does like take a few minutes to seep into her skin and start to burn.
Okay, but she is mildly inconvenienced.
She is burnt.
Yes, okay.
They take it off her and then she's alive.
Yeah.
Because
you can just take clothing off.
He just takes it off.
You just take it off of someone.
So I guess that part should have been confusing to me. But I think they stole this from Highlander the series.
Okay, but instead they treated it like a heated blanket.
Yeah.
It was that premise, but they treated it like a heated blanket for some reason. Ben Kingsley poisoned the cape. And from a writing standpoint, here's what frustrates me about this so much. It's just, like, you need to set up that there's cape poison in this world. Like,
How would you?
You set up a magic dagger and a bunch of other shit. You can't just be like, yeah, audience, y'all know cape poisons, right?
Moving on.
Everyone knows about cape poisons.
We don't need to explain this plot point.
Yeah.
We've all seen a poison cape before. It's crazy he didn't see it coming.
Truly obscene. Truly an obscene choice from the movie. Yeah.
Should we go into a positive?
Sure.
Alfred Molina.
A delight.
And his ostriches.
I wasn't going to include the ostriches, but
How
I'm with
dare
you.
you not
I'm with you.
include
The
the
ostriches were fun.
The ostriches ruled.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could ride ostriches. I assume those people actually were, because I don't think there was a CG budget in this movie.
It seemed like they were.
It seemed that they were. The ostriches were fun. It was very surprising to see ostriches. This felt like when we were watching Scorpion King and there were no horses, just camels. We were like, oh, this movie's ostriches instead.
Yeah. I love the ostriches. I love the energy Alfred Molina is bringing as an ostrich racer. The only man who I think understood what this movie was / could be.
Yes.
Like Alfred Molina.
Always gets it.
He always gets it. He understands camp. He just understands camp. He is a comedic actor who seems like he should be a dramatic actor. And
I always treat Alfred Molina with the gravitas. I'm like, no, he's like a stage theater actor. He is Kenneth Branagh levels. And then he's just like, got 8 arms. Hey, Peter. And he's like, I kissed an ostrich in this movie. But also I was a little bit scary. But also I had like cool speeches about the Umbaku, the knife throwing tribes.
Yeah.
That actually was like fun callbacks whenever he brought it up.
Yes.
He sold it.
Yeah, he did sell the shit out of it.
Sells things.
Yeah, and just like a big physicality as well, just like a big body performance, which everyone else in this movie is very movie acting, where they just hit their mark and they stand still and they say it for the close-up. And Alfred Molina is the only one who's like slithering around and bouncing, and he's like, I don't care where my mark is, you need to shoot it in a wide and keep up with me. And it's like, yes, Alfred, that was exactly the correct choice.
Yeah, because he's like yelling out at extras and he's corralling his men. And here, you're right. He's the only one who's like living in the world and not just doing like film acting.
Yeah.
He exists in this world.
And I think also because he's given that performance, whether it was a choice or knowledge or just his instincts or whatever. So because he's filled with life and movement and he's bouncing around, all of his shots are in a wider shot than everyone else. And because of that, there's fewer edits. So you actually see the world. At any given point when his character moved across a room or from point A to B, I actually knew what the layout of the room was, where he walked, and what the motivation was. Whereas Jake Gyllenhaal only exists in ultra close-ups, where it's just his head just only like just chin to the top of his head, and he's like, I need to go over there, and he turns his head, and then it's a different close-up from a different angle, and it's just like, I'm here now at this side of the room. But the movie never exists outside of a billion edits for unnecessary movement, except Alfred Molina. And I think it's because he did a bigger, more physical performance, which forced a certain style of camera, which forced a certain style of editing, which literally course corrects 9 out of the 10 mistakes this movie is making. And it's really incredible, whether it was just instinct, unspoken, foresight, or whatever it was, or perfect casting, whatever it was, Alfred Molina just fixes so fucking much.
That's a great point. And I wonder if it was like performance, but also just like veteran actor, like he was like just talking to the director, like, no, you're gonna need a wide. We're at a big crowd shot here. Look at all my men. There's ostriches. Like, stop editing the shit out of this film in close-ups.
Yeah.
Because that is a huge negative. And I would say like, what adds to the frustration of this film is that they had giant sets, huge amount of extras, big fight scenes, and there is never a single sense of geography, and it is edited to hell.
Absolute trash editing.
But it seems like on set, everything was really well done.
Yeah. Yeah, I can fully agree with that. I haven't seen editing, like, we haven't covered editing this bad on the podcast since Suicide Squad, like that first one, where it's just like, what the fuck is even happening? This is miserable. Mm-hmm. This is just truly, I think, like a master class in how to make all of the worst possible decisions in editing. Not a single good decision in editing. Everything made it worse.
Everything made it worse. I think the most egregious one to me was actually, it was kind of as we were leaving Alfred Molina the first time. Jake Gyllenhaal and the princess are like, I guess according to the plot, they're causing a riot during the ostrich races. Mm-hmm. So the princess like releases a bunch of weapons and releases the ostriches. And the weapons didn't make any sense because it wasn't like people needed weapons or didn't have weapons. Like no one hated each other.
Yeah.
There was no reason for this to turn into a riot. It was all people. It was like if you just started handing out knives at a NASCAR race and everyone was like, yeah, let's stab each other. Like they were just there to watch the ostrich races.
Yeah, they were there to gamble and make money, I think, and that was it.
Yeah, and they're like, knives, let's go. So that was silly, but also like it felt like a really like well laid out scene. Like they built the track for the ostriches. They had all these extras up in the stands. They had the thing with the knives, and like it was. I feel like it was really clear on set what was happening, and the camera did not capture at all how this sequence was even happening.
Yeah.
Like what was even going on.
At moment to moment, not only did it not capture it, it actively went out of its way to not make sense.
Yeah, like it didn't even show how Jake Gyllenhaal got like free from that knife that was holding him in place. Just all of a sudden he showed up and his shirt was gone. You're like, we clearly know there's a scene where he has to get out of the other shirt.
Yes, and I don't know if that was cut for time or if it's just and if it was, this is still an example of poor editing because you didn't have any insert shot to explain it, and you have unnecessary insert shots for a bunch of shit that doesn't need it. So it's like Jake Gyllenhaal's stuck to a wall with a knife, and Alfred Molina and the other guy are like looking at him.
Looking straight at him. They're
3
like,
feet away and staring at him.
We just trapped you with the knife.
Haha, I'm Alfred Molina. I'm actively talking to you, Jake Gyllenhaal. And then it just like, it cuts to the princess, and then it cuts to an ostrich, and then Jake Gyllenhaal is like, haha, I'm away. What? And then Alfred Molina's like, whoa, no, he got away. We need to go like, who are you talking to? You were talking to him.
When did he get away?
How did he slip away? At one point, the princess is like behind the ostrich race, and then she's in front of it. And I'm like, did you physically outrun an ostrich?
She probably did. So, I think that's I feel like as we talked through the movie, we plugged up all the plot holes. So obviously she was as fast as an ostrich.
Yeah, just miserable editing. Everyone jumps around between locations, and not even the type of bad editing. Because a lot of bad editing is bad editing to like, make up for something or to cover for a mistake, or it's like, we ran out of money, we ran out of time, we lost this actor, the action choreography didn't work, and we need to, hide some of the punches and this and that. And then you end up with bad editing because you're using mistakes to cover other mistakes. But this is a movie where I'm like, you worked harder to have bad editing.
Yeah,
so there are like conversation scenes in like the King's Chamber where I'm like, there are 14 camera angles of Jake Gyllenhaal looking around the room, and none of it makes sense, and it's dizzying and nauseating. And why do we need this many cuts? He's talking to a couple of friends. Like, the blocking is bad. But I'm like, you needed to set up 14 different camera setups that day. You had all of the background extras who are all of the warriors in the background reconfigure 14 times to get 14 different extreme close-ups of Jake Gyllenhaal. You quadrupled your work to make it quadruply bad.
Yeah, it just made it unclear. Like, in most scenes, you couldn't tell who was talking to who or where in the room they were, because it was all just close-ups of faces and never like, this is where in the room we're standing, especially in a crowded room. Like, the scene where she like sees Jake Gyllenhaal for the first time after the other brother has proposed, it's like, what is did she see him? Which brother is she looking at? Who did she just propose to? I genuinely am not sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I felt exactly the same thing. I don't know who's marrying who or why, because none of you are looking the correct place.
Yeah, we need an eye line. We need one wide shot. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, we need one wide shot and only a wide shot. Just let two actors talk to one another. Why there is more work making this worse, I do not understand. But again, to circle back to a positive, Alfred Molina managed to force a solution
managed to fight through this, which happens in every scene he's not in. Every other scene is just not incomprehensible, but just like so hard to watch.
Yeah,
there's nothing easy about watching this movie.
No, there is. Yeah, they've gone out of their way to make everything as difficult as possible to comprehend.
And like, I've already said it a few times, but I think the action looked really good on set. I bet like they're getting like actual parkour moves. They're doing some like cool, like we're throwing guys off sides. Like we've got knife stuff, we've got rope stuff, we've got whips, we've got camels and ostriches, and like it just there wasn't a single like that was cool moment. Like we're doing the fucking Fall from Grace. What does Assassin's Creed do?
Oh, the leap of faith is what they do in Assassin's. Yeah.
But they also did weird choices where it's like Jake Gyllenhaal's doing a leap of faith and the camera slows down and they act like it's going to be a big deal. And then he does a leap of faith and it's like he's fighting a random henchman. It's not even like his brother or like his uncle or a bad guy we know. It's like, oh, okay, the random henchman got like a super move? Like, why did he get the power combo?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great way of thinking of it, and I didn't even really think about that.
Yeah, like you're acting like this is a boss battle, and then it just cut to random henchmen chasing him.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the henchman's also really far away and not a threat.
It wasn't a threat. No, he was not a threat. The one, like the two instances I'm thinking of was just literally just a rando guy.
And even for these like big set pieces, which I agree, it does seem like a lot of it was done practically. Or even if it wasn't, it was done in, one kind of fluid movement and take. Because some of the fight scenes, it's like, okay, the fight scenes, I actually get similar to you, I get the impression that they were actually really well done and you've edited it miserably.
It felt confident in like the action.
Fractions of a second of confidence. And that might be an illusion. And if so, maybe that is successful editing to make it seem competent when maybe it was bad choreography on set or it wasn't ready. And sometimes you need to cut away or like edit it to make sure to be like, well, now we cut away and now you can't tell that these swords never connect or the punch doesn't land. But there's some stuff like the parkour where I'm like, no one's at risk, and clearly this was accomplished in a singular movement, and you have 9 edits in it, and it makes it really sad. Where it's like Jake Gyllenhaal's character is like parkouring over a wall and then steps on like a bunch of flagpoles that are sticking out of a building and runs across. No one's chasing him. There's no contact. There's no fight. There's nothing you need to hide in the edit. But instead of just like, hey, look at this dude parkour, at one point, they show a close-up of his foot from underneath his foot. And I'm like, why the fuck did we cut to that? Then a close-up of his face. Then like a close-up of like the cloth of his shirt breezing in the wind. Then back to a wide as he finishes the parkour move. But I can tell, I'm like, you or your stunt person did that shit. You did that shit, and we didn't need not one edit anywhere in this.
Yeah, it reminds me of like literally we were just watching stuntmen react. And they were, it's a YouTube channel, and they were watching like stunts, and they were like talking about how like this was actually a 1-take stunt that they just edited to hell, and it looks like I didn't do it in 1 take. And they're like, that's why we film rehearsals. They were like so adamant, like you have to film your rehearsals because the editor is gonna chop your stunts up so bad.
It was miserable. It was Stuntmen React on the Corridor Digital channel, and they were talking about Bright.
Yes,
Bright,
the Netflix
Blight,
movie. Bright.
Bright, yeah. Yeah, and it was a phenomenal stunt woman who was like, I backflipped over a car, grabbed a gun, then did like a somersault landing all in one solid fluid movement.
In a gas station that had very low ceilings.
Yeah, so I couldn't jump too high, and the wire work was incredibly difficult, and there's 9 edits, and you can't tell that anyone did anything, and you have no idea what's happening. But I actually did that, and it was cool as hell. It's like, I don't...
And then they showed the clips from the rehearsal, and it was like, oh, shit, that was cool as hell, and it looked shitty in the movie.
So there's a good chance that, like, maybe a lot of this was like this, of stunt people who really put their back and gave something their all. And then, I don't know, just out of insecurity, maybe? It does really feel like a lot of this movie was made by a series of executives who've never seen a movie before or don't get anything, where it's like, no, we need more edits. It's got to be faster, peppier, more. And it's just like, it doesn't need any of that. And I guess, like, this was a Bruckheimer production, and that kind of chaotic editing is part of it, but it doesn't work in this at all.
And like that has to work with like really charming actors who have like kind of peppy, bantery dialogue happening, like kind of Mummy-esque, even The Rock and Scorpion King, if we're going to be like similar feeling movies that this movie definitely wishes it was. Guys, if you haven't listened to our episode on Scorpion King, that movie's so much better than you think it is.
Yeah, it's an unexpected banger.
Unexpected banger. But this one has like not a single funny line. Like Alfred Molina, I think, is giving a great performance, but they didn't write him a single joke.
No, he doesn't have any jokes in the script.
He's doing everything he can, but like no one has a line that you're like, oh, what a charming person. I really like them. And even Jake Gyllenhaal, who I like, I'm like, I really like you.
Yeah.
I think your hair looks great. And other than that, I'm like, I don't really particularly like you. I don't like the princess. I don't like your brothers.
Oh, I'm wishing ill on all of them, frankly.
Most of them, yeah. Like when he reverses time to the very beginning at the end and like the battle's kind of over, I'm like, can we do the battle again and everyone dies and like we've just run out of reverse juice on the dagger and like we can just get this over with?
The reverse juice on the dagger is over. And another negative for the writing. the gobbledygook on the dagger. Like the amount of exposition they deliver over this dagger where it's like, it's the dagger. It has sands in it. The sands have used up. The sands are good for 1 minute. There's no refill for the sand. I do have a necklace. The necklace does have one refill for the sand, which is 1 more minute for the sand. Now we've used all the sand. Do you want to know how the sand got in there? First of all, no, I do not. No, I do not, movie. And for the movie to be like, the movie has like a 5-minute sequence where it's like, a woman made a promise to the desert, and then where are the guardians to protect the dagger because of the promise that was made to save the people, and then the sands went into the magic sands, and now I don't give a shit. There's a magic dagger. Move on. No one was asking any questions. Fuck completely off.
And like the dagger will like destroy the world if you stick it into the hourglass thing. Also, there's a temple where the dagger can be destroyed. That doesn't matter because we go there and we just leave a second later.
Yeah.
We don't destroy the dagger, and that's not how we destroy the dagger at the end of the movie in any way.
We never use that whole plot device.
That whole place where the dagger can be destroyed. And through all of this exposition about the dagger, and like the Guardians have been corrupted. She really cares about this. We don't care about the Guardians being corrupted, but she gives a lot of shits about this. All of this stuff about the dagger. And literally, not once do they tell us what you're supposed to use the dagger for.
Yeah.
Why do you have it? Why does it exist?
Mm-hmm.
Just destroy it then.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally only a minute back. It's only useful in literal hand-to-hand combat.
That is entirely it.
Or if you're just like really awkward. If you're not good at conversation.
It's socially powerful.
The social powers involved. I would never fuck up a thing.
Yeah.
Actually seems nice.
No, we would still fuck up things.
But you could go back.
You could go back, but if you get 2 attempts, if you're not smooth by your second attempt.
No, I'm going to have like a bunch of necklaces full of sand like she does.
Just awkwardly in the corner of a party refilling your necklace sand.
No, just refilling my dagger. No.
Diana's
usually so smooth, but she's over there in the corner and she's like...
Filling her dagger, weirdly.
Like, I need more sand. I also don't know how you get the sand out of the hourglass to fill it a little.
None of it. All of it's stupid. They
answered none of the questions I had.
They answered all of the wrong questions that no one was asking.
No one was asking about the Guardians.
Yeah. When it was like, what was the promise made to the desert to create the sands? No one asked that. No one asked that. When randomly the princess is like, there's a special brick you can put it in that we were all promised to protect that can destroy it. Nothing happened. No one was asking that. That is not how this movie is. It honestly feels like she's living out her own movie that no one gives a fuck about as well. Because there are straight up times where like the prince, where Jake Gyllenhaal is like, oh my God, it was my uncle who betrayed me with a poison cape sent to my father. And that was so that he can take the crown. He's turning my brothers against one another while creating a false flag operation of fake weapons that were planted in your nation. And then she'll turn to him and be like, but the Guardians have been corrupted. And then it just sits like a wet fart for like a minute.
And then they almost kiss, but don't.
And then they don't. And then no one gives one shit about any of the things she said. It's just like, what do we do about the Guardians being corrupted?
She is the B plot, yes, but she is the title because she is like a guardian of the sands of time. But yeah, this movie is about the political stuff with the uncle. Mm-hmm. And everything magical is just so shoved to the side. It's like, I guess we could do some magic, but it's only going to be for a minute.
Okay, sure.
And she's like, this is what this movie's about, right? She's like, no.
No, it is not.
No, it's about me and my uncle.
No, yeah. It's entirely a political thriller.
You don't need this dagger for this movie to work.
Yeah, and also you're both the same character, and I don't give a shit.
Yeah, they had no chemistry. Ugh.
None at all.
Awful.
Yeah, and just no difference in their characterization. There were the first scene where they're like wandering the desert alone. It's just her being like, "Oh, I can really tell by the way you walk. You're a rich kid, spoiled rich kid, privileged little brat." And then like a minute later, they do the same dialogue of him to her, where he's just like, "Girl, you seem like a spoiled little brat. Don't you know that you're
the desert?"
But like, it's never aware or clever that they're both Spider-Man meme pointing at one another. It's just the same recycled dialogue stale recycled dialogue twice of the same character, and neither of whom have chemistry with one another.
Yeah. You see the worst in each other because it's you.
Yeah.
You're like, that's why I don't like you. You're just like me.
It's you, and you're bland.
Both very bland.
Yeah. So just bland characterization of two people with no chemistry.
There is something that made me laugh in this movie unintentionally. I'm pretty sure I did laugh my ass off about the fact that literally everyone who believes Jake Gyllenhaal has a magic knife is instantly murdered. Literally 10 seconds after being like, I believe you, Jake. Let's clear your name. It's like, dead. Absolutely dead.
True comedy. True comedy.
Comedy comes in threes, and when that last brother got his throat slit seconds after believing Jake Gyllenhaal, I was like, this movie might slap.
Truly hilarious.
Might be good.
Yeah, I did really like that. I could have went for more of that.
Because his like first brother isn't a brother. It's like his friend who he grew up with, and he died pretty early. But he died like right after Jake Gyllenhaal was framed. So it's like, oh, that guy died already. And then the second brother is like, all right, I believe you. Literally walks through a door, gets shot with 4 arrows. So then Jake Gyllenhaal's like, I only have one brother left. Surely he will believe me. And he does manage to convince him and literally gets his throat cut 5 seconds later.
So good.
So funny.
Good.
And like Jake Gyllenhaal hasn't noticed the pattern in any way, hasn't commented on the fact that everyone who believes him is then instantly killed.
Yeah. Which, like, there's so much comedy that could have been mine here. And not even, like, straight comedy, but just, like, charm. Comedy might be too strong a word, where it's like, this. I'm not saying that, like, oh, convert this movie to a full comedy. But if it leaned into a little, there could be charm. Like, Jake Gyllenhaal could play a charismatic lead character of, like, again, or like he has a knife that goes back 1 minute and it's never used in a charming or comedic way.
No, or even if Alfred Molina commented on it, like another brother just got killed after you told him, because Alfred Molina was there for 2 of the 3 of them.
Yeah, yeah.
So if he was there and he was like, no, not again.
Yes. Yeah, like for fun, historical, mystical adventure movies. Imagine if Brendan Fraser's character in The Mummy got a dagger that went back 1 minute.
Oh my God.
How absolutely funny and charming that would be, but also would still continue the tension and action at the same time. Like, there's a lot of opportunity here for a better crew and more adept cast to do something with it.
Yeah, like there is like bones on this movie that could have been delicious.
Yes.
But instead we choked on the bones.
All right. Well, I'm feeling all choked on the bones. I'm good on Sands of Time, Prince of Persia, Sands of Time.
I'm good on talking about this movie. I've given it all the credit it deserved. I think all the on-set people of like costumers, like set dressers, extras, stunt people. Great work. Sorry, the editor and director fucked you.
Yes. Yeah. I'm really glad that you brought up the costume thing. That was a highlight now that you say it, and we're both on the same page on Alfred Molina. And yeah, I would like to see like some behind the scenes footage or an interview with one of the stunt people to find out like, was this good and did they ruin it?
Because it didn't feel, in a weird way, even though it's bad, it didn't feel rushed.
I agree with that too.
It didn't feel like a movie where they didn't have enough time to film the stuff they wanted.
It felt choreographed. Like it felt like it was like, well, even the parkour stuff, it's like you built out a pretty interesting parkour course and set to run over. It's not just like the same gap or like the same like, oh, I jump over like one building to the roof of another building over and over again. It felt varied and thought out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's disappointing.
Yeah. Well, let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? So now that we've discussed everything we discussed, what would you change about this movie if you could change anything? But before we do ask that final question, we want to remind you, as we so often are known to do.
We've done it before, and we'll do it again.
We'll do it again, goddammit, is please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, wherever you might get your podcasts. By leaving a rating and review, it helps us move up the charts. It helps us get recommended to new listeners. And also when new listeners find us, it encourages them and it increases the chances that they'll actually hit download, give us a try. So it's a free way to support this podcast and help us find new listeners, which helps us get bigger and be more successful and warms our hearts as well.
We want to be big like Alfred Molina.
What
That's the dream.
What a dream. What a career he's had.
Like big, like in the room big, you know?
Yeah.
Like as we described it earlier. Like we want to be filmed in a wide.
We want to be filmed in a wide.
Oh, yeah, we need your help for that. We need a 5-star review about how we're big like Alfred Molina.
Leave a review that says "film them in a wide." That's the call to action for this week. That's a free way to support the podcast. And if you do want to support the podcast monetarily, you can do that over on Patreon, which is a monthly subscription system where you'll get cool bonuses depending on your donation level. And those bonuses will vary. At $1 a month, you get our webcomic Texts from Superheroes a day early, or sometimes more than a day. You get them early. We guarantee you that. So different levels of bonuses and benefits. At the $10 hero level, you get an additional episode of this podcast every single month, our Patreon exclusive episode. And when you sign up at that $10 level, you get immediate access to the full back catalog as well.
And the full back catalog is so good. There are so many episodes there. It's always on topics or movies or shows that we have not covered on the regular podcast. They're ad-free. They're tons of fun. There is so much more talk from superheroes awaiting for you in the Patreon trenches, if you so wish to pursue them.
That is right. Last month we did Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. This month's Patreon exclusive will be the movie Plane.
Just plain.
Just play. It has a bad mouthfeel to say.
There's not enough title.
There's not enough title.
There needs to be more title.
But it's also not even a jokey enough title. At least like old, people called it The Beach That Makes You Old. But like Plane.
What is it?
It hurts.
You can't even call it Airplane because that's a different movie.
Yeah,
that had enough title.
Well, we're going to be covering that this month as an exclusive on Plane. So check that out. You're going to want to head over to patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. That is patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. Have a look at the different levels. Check it out. If it's in the budget, we appreciate you. If it's not, maybe check back later when it is. You take care of yourself first, though.
You do you, guys.
Yeah.
And thank you to all our current patrons. We love you so much.
Ooh, thank you. And now, let's go in with the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? Diana, what would you change?
I think my biggest change for my own sense of comfort is that the actors would be ethnically appropriate for a movie called Prince of Persia. I don't think we're going to get much disagreement across the board on that one.
I'm fully in.
We're fully in.
I'm in.
If I need other changes, I think the thing that most annoyed me, well, different director and editor would change so much in this film. But I think if I'm just going like plot-wise, I do think it was really annoying how late the dagger was introduced. So I think I'm even going to change just like the princess isn't the main character, but she opens the movie at the very least, and they explain what the dagger is in like the opening VO. And I always hate an opening VO, but whatever. It's gonna make this movie like 15 minutes shorter if we just have like a quick opening prologue about like there's sand in an hourglass and this dagger is magic, and she's protecting it, and now her city's being invaded. I'm like, okay, cool, that'd be great. I don't need to have scenes about this later, and then it would feel like I knew the dagger is the driving force because, like, it's so late that it comes up. And we'd use it a lot more. We'd have so many fight scenes where you've got a magic dagger and you're like, I fucked that up. Got to go back. So more dagger? Much like a more cowbell, I'm just like, more dagger.
More dagger. Gotta have more dagger.
Gotta have more dagger.
I love that.
Make the movie shorter, ethnically appropriate.
Love it.
I think across the board. These are
across the board. I mean, I fully agree with make it ethnically appropriate. I feel like that's a strong one. As often with our what would you changes, it's like the blanket is let's not be offensive. Let's fix the offensive aspects of this movie. Then let's write a real change.
There's an elephant in the room, and then there's like an actual writing practice,
yes.
which are two different things.
Yeah, two very different things. But I love that.
Mm-hmm. What would you change?
So I would say my change is I would kind of piggyback off of yours, obviously, make it appropriate. And then to get more dagger in, I want to make 2 changes to a single scene.
Oh, my. Very specific.
Which I feel like make a big difference. There's no poison cape
anymore. Babe.
There's no poison cape.
Babe, but it was inspired by Highlander the series.
Obviously, it was inspired by Highlander the series. But you leave Highlander the series alone and come up with your own movie.
You know what? I like that attitude, too. I like that attitude a lot.
Gotcha. So no poison cape. What I say is just poison wine. The thing that we normally poison in fantasy stories.
Oh, you're so blah. You're so plain.
Also, the fact that the precursor, the scene before the poison cape, is Ben Kingsley's character talking to Jake Gyllenhaal. And he's just like, one thing that you're going to need to learn about when your brother is king is that you always need to make sure that he's kept with good wine. Always feed him wine.
Oh my God, he did say that.
They established that the king is his brother, the king, is a bit of a drunkard and loves wine and needs to constantly be fed wine. And it's like, that's the gift for a king. Like Kingsley tells him, is like, you have to give him wine. If that was the seed of then later being like, here's wine that you should give the king, that's perfect. And wine is a thing that is typically poisoned.
But if it was from your son, you wouldn't check if it was.
Absolutely. A king wouldn't taste wine from his son. So I think change the cape to wine, the object they've already established, and a traditional poisoner. So I'm going to say do that. That's a big one.
Okay, that's pretty good.
And then my other big one is that he uses the dagger in that scene.
Oh.
So the king gets poisoned. And Jake Gyllenhaal, the prince, has the Sands of Time dagger already in the regular movie. He has it at that scene.
He does. He hasn't used it yet, but he has it.
So I think his dad dies. Then he accidentally or through coincidence or whatever, or like they're chasing him, he pushes the button and goes back to before he dies and is very confused and doesn't know how to adapt to this power yet. And watches his dad die a second time.
Oh, brutal, babe.
Brutal. Or maybe even like cries out to be like, someone's going to poison him. And they're like, he knew it was poisoned. He poisoned his dad. And it just makes things worse maybe. But now the thing's out of ammo. It's out of juice. And his whole thing is, I've got to go grab the princess and ask her about this dagger I took from her. And then it's a reason for them to go on the lam together. Of him being like, what the fuck? I could have stopped my dad from dying with this magical dagger. How does this work? What is going on? As opposed to like, hey, Rando, you're also around. We were kind of betrothed by a kingdom that has betrayed us both. Do we honor that? Let's walk together for 30 minutes of movie until later I figure out the dagger thing. I think it's way more dramatic if he figures it out in a moment of challenge.
I really like that change. I think you've made a very silly dramatic moment, which is the cape death, into an actual dramatic, maybe heartbreaking moment of watching your dad die twice in 1 minute.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, too, also that would be like a little bit of tension between the prince and the princess as well, because the prince could then maybe like be like, I want also to go back very far in time and keep the king alive. Whereas Ben Kingsley wants to go back further in time and have the king dead way earlier. And it's like, well, like, what do we do? Do we accept what has happened and move forward? So I think that there's like a personal conflict there. Yeah. That's my change.
I love it.
Yeah.
Great changes.
Poison wine.
All right. Don't steal from Highlander the series. I'll know. I will call you out. I will say, hey, Highlander the series did that first.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. And then also have more dagger, like you said.
More dagger.
Yeah, I got it in a little bit earlier, and then it should be more consistent from there on out. She should have more sand on her.
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, and no less shots of her boobs where the sand is hitting. That was sucky.
Yeah, let's maybe just not. Ugh. Let's maybe just not have all the one sand refill in her cleavage. Yeah.
Oh boy, what a film!
Yeah, what a movie. That sure was movie. Well, that's going to do it for Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. Next week on the podcast, we are going to be talking about another video game property. I'm sure probably of the same quality and tone.
Yes,
definitely.
We definitely will have the same feelings about the next thing we're covering.
I'm sure the same feelings and energy. Next week, we're going to be talking about the full season of The Last of Us. So we'll be talking about The Last of Us next week, and as well, I have a new. I keep forgetting to mention this.
I can't believe we forgot until the end of the podcast again.
Absolutely, again. I have a new comedy album coming out on March 10th. You can pre-order it right now. My new comedy album, it's called Murder Bird. It is available March 10th, and you can pre-order it or pre-save it to your playlists by going to murderbird.andrewivimey.com. That is murderbird.andrewivimey, I would love it if y'all check it out. I'll be posting about it on all my social media as well, so you'll see links put out there. You shouldn't be able to miss it if you're a fan of the network. They should be all over our socials.
There are links and clips and everything you need to know about the very, very funny Murder Bird. There should be a link in the notes of this episode, probably.
Yes.
That's a good place for a link.
You know what? Let's put it there.
Nice. We did it.
We promoted good. Boom. So go check that out. If you want to see clips of it or find other links, then you are going to want to check me out on social media. Hit me up on Instagram at Ivimey, Ivimey. And
you can find me at Words of Diana on Twitter. And also, just a quick note, I actually think Last of Us will probably be out a day late because it's a Sunday night show.
Oh, yes. So next week's episode will be a day late.
Just FYI, if you're like, where's that Last of Us? And it's a day late, probably.
There we go.
At least a few hours.
Probably, possibly. And if you want to reach both of us, you can find us on social media at From Superheroes. And we'll talk to y'all next week.
Bye.